Welcome back, AP. I gotta grab my football so I can actually focus a little bit. So we have a short flip tonight. It was not gonna be crazy long because we just gotta wrap up Italian unification and get into Prussian unification, i.e., German unification, here in a hot second. All right. So now, biggest thing that we got into today in class, we were talking about. We were reviewing a little bit the unification of Italy, like talking about our major figures, our big players, our big areas that we want to go after, right? Now what we're getting into, though, is we're getting into the southern portion. We got into Garibaldi and his tactics to try and go ahead and use his red shirt militia to try and unify southern Italy. And in this ingenious pincer move that starts in the North Italy and in southern Italy, they just went and then just met each other in the middle, creating the Italy you mostly know today. All right. It's going to take about 10 more years, but we're going to get to that in a little bit, okay? So the biggest thing is Garibaldi is going to be successful by using guerrilla tactics to outwit over 20,000 French Royal military men and take major cities like Palermo and Sicily, all right? So there is a very, very, very couple of famous stories about his campaigns, right? I'm going to look into some other stuff. I'm going to try and find some fun, really anecdotal thing, because I don't really know how you'd fight a guerrilla war in Italy, right? And this is a subject that I know a good amount about, but I don't know a lot of little nitty-gritty cool stuff about, right? So, but the thing about it is, Garibaldi is going to use these guerrilla tactics to outwit all of these French military men and create just a united kingdom of two Sicilies, and he's going to move his way all the way up to Naples, right? But here's the thing. As you climb through Italy and as you go further and further northward, you're getting closer and closer and closer to a hot button spot that you've got to be really worried about pissing people off when you take it. It's called Rome, right? And who leads Rome? The Pope, right? And what is most of Europe still? Catholic. If most of Europe is Catholic, we got a little bit of a diplomatic political issue if you start slapping around their religious leader, all right? So the problem is that Garibaldi was on his way to attacking Rome and the Pope, right? So what Count Cavour is going to do after being reinstated in 1860 back to being the politician and the one of the heads of state in Italy, right, or the new northern Italian state after Florence was just and just gave over its territory as well. He's going to quickly send Sardinian forces to protect the Papal States, okay, but not to Rome itself, all right? So the reason why that is, he wants to go around Rome and create kind of a large border fence. You understand what I'm talking about? And so the plan was go to the southern portion of the Papal States and head Garibaldi off there. Because if you can head Garibaldi off at the southern portion within the Papal States, then you can intercept him, and that way you won't bring down pure Catholic French fury on top of your heads, right? So getting into it, though, he intercepts him, and then there's a very, very famous painting, and I'm going to show it to you really quick. A very famous painting right here of Garibaldi and Victor Emmanuel meeting in Naples, shaking hands, and actually agreeing to one another to cede territory to Victor Emmanuel, right? So Garibaldi had no desire to lead the entirety of Italy. He just wanted to see, with his red shirt military force, that's why I have these Star Trek guys over here, the red shirts, right? So he just wanted to see the country of Italy be realized, right? So the conquered territories, he gives them over to Victor Emmanuel of Sardinia, right? And then we now have a modern Italian state from just a couple of initiatives of different guys. This is one of my favorite political cartoons about the entire thing. You got, what's his face? You got Garibaldi right over here, actually building the boot known as Italy with Count Cavour, right? They're actually cobbling it together. So the big thing is Italy is going to become a united kingdom in 1860, okay? And it's going to claim the land that you know as modern-day Italy by 1870. That actually incorporates your Vatican City as a small country, right? It includes that the papal seat is its own practice and is not held down by any government, right? That it is separate technically from Italy, okay? So Italy is going to form a parliamentary monarchy, basically kind of emblematic of the English style of government. It was neither radical and also not completely democratic, okay? So their parliamentary monarchy when we're looking at the classical liberal conservative socialism scale, it's pretty flipping close to classical liberal, all right? Like, because radical would assume that they want to cede universal suffrage. Socialism would include they want to cede basically everything and abolish private property eventually. The classical liberals, remember, do not agree with the ideas that everyone can vote, right? So the classical liberal scheme is seen very much so in when Italy forms itself as a country, because North Italy became very industrious and was very quick to progress, using some of the railroads laid by France and some of the infrastructure that was created in the continent during the Industrial Revolution. Very quick to progress. Now the problem was that southern Italy stayed very agrarian and was very slow paced and did not progress very quickly. Okay, so this led to a lot of animosity between northern Italians and southern Italians, right? This actually even led up to some anarchist rebellions, all right? So there was a group of anarchists that actually started in Italy that actually started perpetrating a lot of like terroristic attacks throughout Europe in the 1900s. One of those attacks actually includes the stabbing to death of, I think it's Sisi, yeah, the stabbing to death of the Austrian queen with a sharpened metal file. He just did it in a crowd outside of a theater. Italian immigration was another huge thing they dealt with, because after the unification of Italy, there still was a big problem with all of these southern Italian agrarian-based people that were being left out of the growing economies of North Italy. And so there's going to be a massive immigration movement, and a lot of them are actually going to immigrate to North America and the United States, okay? And only about 0.5 million people could vote out of the 22 million Italian citizens, right? So it wasn't the best unification movement, but it's a unification movement all the same, right? So Italy under Cavour, Emanuele, and Garibaldi actually led their country forward. And the ideas planted by Mazzini were like just finally realized, and you now have an Italian country in and of itself, right? So, but then we got to get into Prussia, right? So when you're nation building in Prussia, you really, really got to get after the fact that Prussia had already tried this once, all right? Prussia had attempted to create a unified German state during and right after the revolutions of 1848, because the liberal sect inside of Prussia was much more a fan of the national identity of the German people, right? We all speak the same language. We also have the same culture. We all have the same holidays. We all have the same religion. We should be a unified country, right? So, but here's the other issue. So the way, like, they had started trying to do this a lot earlier than 1848. The seeds of nationalism in Prussia were planted way earlier than 1848. And it all started with this thing called the Zollverein, all right? So the Zollverein, all right? It's a German customs union that makes it so there aren't tariffs on different German products coming from German-speaking territories, right? And every single German-speaking state was in it. Bavaria, Bohemia, Prussia, Schleswig, Holstein, parts of Alsace, parts of Lorraine, like they were all inside of it, except Austria. Austrians have refused to join the Zollverein. Now, a lot of people believe, for two reasons. Is this religious or is it political, right? Because it could be based off Austrians' refusal to join the German Union, could be based off the fact that Austrians see themselves as Austrians. So this is the political sense. Austria has been wildly wealthy and the home to the Habsburg family for hundreds of years, right? Wildly wealthy, a major player in all European affairs, controlled the Holy Roman Empire for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Using the Golden Bull, bribing 4 out of 7 electors. So they didn't really necessarily want to join Germany. Some Germans apparently were reported as saying, look, we'll be a greater Germany if you were with us. And the Austrians apparently said, well, I guess you're doomed to be a lesser Germany. And all the Germans were just like, and Prussia particularly, right? So then other historians, especially revisionist historians, believe that it could have been religiously based, right? That due to the fact that Austrians were wildly wealthy and very Catholic and Prussians were Lutheran, right? So Prussia, though, why do I have a question mark there? Was the head of the Zollverein Union. So they have a way and an entry point into creating a unified German state. So following the revolutions of 1848, a very, very small Prussian parliament began to grow, right? And the biggest thing about it is a legislative branch is the seed of a national state, right? Because you have elected people in an elected body passing laws for their constituents, right? So following the revolutions of 1848, they did fail massively, and the Hohenzollern family stayed in control because he would not take that crown from the gutter, right? The big thing about it is the Frankfurt Parliament was still there. It wasn't the best, but it was growing, right? And it's not going to last for very long. It's going to be replaced later on by this thing called the Reichstag, all right? So now, Wilhelm I Hohenzollern, the leader of Prussia, King of Prussia, decides now is the time to nationalize our people into a German-speaking, German heritage, German culture-based state, right? Because he was inspired by the national revolts in Italy, right? He saw Italy making moves to become a state in and of themselves. Well, he wants to nationalize by doing what Germans and Prussians do best. What do? Military, right? The Kaiser Wilhelm I, not Kaiser yet, sorry about that. King, we're just going to call him Wilhelm I, right? Wilhelm I decides the way to get this done is to increase taxes so we can double the size of the army, right? Well, the parliament, the Frankfurt Parliament, has issue with this because they think there's got to be other diplomatic ways to go about it, which is not the brightest method because it is still late 1800s Europe, and you're not going to get anything done without a military. They're mostly middle class, and they reject this idea because the liberal-minded, classical liberal-minded politicians don't support the idea of militarism, all right? So, because remember, militarism at this point in time is a trait of an absolutist government, right? Because an absolutist has control over a very dominant military. So, of course, the parliament's going to go against this. Well, to curry favor in that parliament and to be the guy in charge of making sure the liberal sector gets on board, just like Cavour in Italy was hired by Emmanuel, Wilhelm turns to your man Otto von Bismarck, right? Otto von Bismarck and Victor Emmanuel were told at length multiple times by other European powers, you do not want to do this. You do not want to try and consume the German Confederation. You don't want to try and actually create a German state. Don't do it. But guess what? They did it anyway, right? So we're going to get into the Prussian unification movement tomorrow, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. We've got to talk about a new weapon called the Dreisen needle gun, like all kinds of other cool stuff. And we're going to like keep picking up on like the rolling forward of their legislative bodies and how this man right here, Otto von Bismarck, is the hero of German unification, and how Kaiser Wilhelm is also a hero, but is oftentimes misconstrued as a stooge. All right, so we'll talk about those guys a little bit later, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hope you all have a great evening. See ya.